Hey, what's up?
Mr. Dust.
It is finally time.
Make sure you follow me on Twitch to get my garage door as a Twitch drop. September 7th through the 14th. Check the description for the link. Also, 90% of you aren't subscribed, so click that button. The Anvil is my replacement for the original Yeti, but it's 26,000 metal fragments cheaper. The Anvil has a cozy 2-wall to loot open core, dialed-in furnace walls with broken Petrico peaks that see absolutely everything, chain-link turrets that leave no angle in your compound unchecked, a funnel wall that's perfectly aligned to cover the breach during a raid, and prevent raiders from rotating throughout your compound. We also have my favorite roof and shooting floor combo I've ever built, and more beds and lockers than you'll know what to do with. All of this begins as a cheap and easy to build starter base, but progresses into a main base that'll carry you through your entire wipe. As you can see, the build cost and upkeep clocks in significantly cheaper than the Yeti in metal frags, and the footprint is actually pretty small given how spacious the base is. With that out of the way, let's get into the tour. We'll start off our tour of the Anvil with our disconnectable TCs. There are only 3 of them, and as you can see, the upkeep is super reasonable. We also have backup batteries here if you need them. We'll have to disconnect these TCs in order to replace your main one after a raid. Simply put a foundation and a twig roof right here to disconnect them, and then replace the frames when your main TC's been replaced. We also have some breach peaks that look outside of the compound. Heading into our gatehouse, we can see that we have Petrico peaks that line up exactly with our furnace walls. We'll break those in a second so you can take a look at how it looks during a raid. Heading into our compound, we can see that this chain link protects these turrets from HV rockets, and we have a couple additional drop boxes above the gatehouses. Here's our furnace wall that adds 5 rockets to our compound, and another turret behind chain link. These peaks from our funnel wall line up perfectly with these double low walls, so then when all of this is breached, there are no blind spots. You can see how effective these peaks are in our gatehouse, and if we head into our funnel, we'll see that these ones have absolutely no blind spots and leave you almost impossible to hit. We can see directly through the double low walls, but they also provide that turret a little bit more protection because you don't see it until after it's shooting at you. Taking a look at the rest of our funnel wall, we can see an entrance, a window, and another door frame here that guards some shotgun traps, making it impossible for raiders to rotate around your compound. You can head into mobility from any of the 3 sides of the base. Notice that this window is perfectly lined up along the funnel wall. This is an insanely strong angle if your compound is breached like it is on this side. One of the 3 sides of your base has your entrance to your starter, and then all 3 sides have furnaces and electric furnaces in the mobility. If we head into our starter, we can see that we have 3 full-size loot rooms, plenty of places for deployables, and this is our main TC upkeep. Let's head back out into our mobility chute where we can go up to a bedroom floor. All 3 sides of the base have beds, lockers, and these peaks directly into open core. As you can see, there's also some additional boxes under these open core peaks. And if we head up one more floor, we can see an additional set of lockers, some beds, tier 3 workbench, and then the most cozy open core in Rust. This is a pretty standard circle base open core. The way that it fits into this base is just perfect. Next, we can head up to our shooting floor, which also houses the turrets that look through the ramps into open core. You can also use these ramps as peaks. We have a bunch of half-height window peaks here, which are absolutely nasty for taking bolty shots at a raid base, or your neighbor who's running by. This entire section is actually the Palisade's shooting floor module, which perfectly overlooks the furnace wall and the funnel wall. We have a couple of additional lockers in this breach peak here, which give us great angles into our compound and outside of it. But now let's take a look at my favorite part of this base, the roof. We have a couple drop boxes on each entrance, and then we can jump up onto the most aesthetic roof I've ever built. We have turrets all over the place on this roof, some protected by chain link, others hidden behind these window frames, and overall I don't think you're gonna get top-down rated. There are also breach peaks on this roof that see down into the compound, far away, right onto your furnace funnels, and basically an infinite number of beds. Some of these little bedroom sections even extend out with windows, so you could pop those off during a raid and get additional angles. This base is an absolute dream to live out of. It's cozy, it's practical, it's easy to build, and there's finally a worthy successor to the original Yeti, but at 26,000 metal fragments cheaper. The starter unit for the anvil is super simple. We'll just start with a 1x1 square with a double door on the front. You can then place a triangle airlock off of that just like this. Just keep in mind this isn't a single door airlock, so be mindful of people going deep. We'll place our TC in the back left corner and always make sure you put a code lock on it. You can fill out this starter 1x1 with any deployables that you need for the early game. Heading outside of the starter, we'll build a hexagon off of this triangle and then put a double door frame here. Now on every other triangle, we'll place a square. We can then wall in the perimeter of the base and put a ceiling on the entire thing. Just a note for future reference, this base is 3-way symmetrical. I'll put a little graphic up on the screen so you know when I turn symmetry on. This double door is our new entrance to starter, so we can move our airlock up to here. We'll use this square to fill out in the early game with as many furnaces as possible, and the other square can be a 6-box loot room. Always make sure to put doors on your loot rooms and garage doors as soon as possible. On that note, we'll continue building out double door frames on the main hexagon, and just for now, I'm going to place garage doors on everything, but just place them when you can. Because the door path is so long on the starter, even if you just upgrade the rooms to HQM or metal, you're already going to have a decent early game raid cost. Heading outside, we'll build this twig build-up to give us a shelf in our main loot room. This will let us easily squeeze in 4 or 5 large boxes. It just depends on your preference for layout. Once we've built out this loot room, we have a fair amount of storage in our starter, and if you ever need another one, you can use the furnace room as another loot room. You can also put our tier 1 and tier 2 workbench right here, or you can squeeze it in the furnace room if you don't need all 8 or 9 furnaces. Make sure to slap some bags down in this, and your starter is complete. We'll start off by expanding our mobility and getting into our open core. Just note that 3-way symmetry is on, which means that everything we do on this side of the base will happen on the other 2 sides as well. We'll start off with this build out for the mobility section. We can wall it in and then put a window frame and a single door frame here. We'll then step inside and we can place a ceiling on this triangle and square, and then place some double door frames in here. This last triangle will be our jump up to the next floor on each of the 3 sides of the base. Go ahead and build a standard jump up like this and just leave it sealed at half height, not all the way at the top. I'm going to place some garage doors down here, but just use whatever doors you have at the time. We can use a furnace here as a jump up, or you can put a half height shelf depending on your needs. And as you can see, the 3-way symmetry has done it on the other 2 sides of the base as well. Next, we'll place a window frame with the hard side facing us and a wall with the hard side facing us. Then we can enclose the rest of this mobility section and place a single door frame here where a locker will go. Building out the open core in this base is actually really quick and pretty cheap to do. So we'll drop down into where the open core will be and make sure these squares are built up 2 walls high. Notice that the wall where the jump up is might be backwards, so upgrade it to sheet metal and then rotate it. Next, we can put a half wall with the hard side facing away from the loot room on each of the 3 sides. And then we'll put a ramp right here, making sure to rotate it and upgrade it to sheet metal. We can place 3 half walls here as well, and then place floor tiles on top of them. Next, we'll continue enclosing our mobility section right here with full walls. We'll also put a ceiling on top, again just leaving this triangle open as a jump up. I'm going to use a sheet double door here for now, so then people can't go deep from the roof. Place a double door frame here and a single door next to it, again for another locker. We can start placing a roof on our open core and then seal up our loot room. Place a double door frame with a floor tile on top of it and then jump to get this frame up here. We can place our ramp for our ramp turrets right here, and then as a little bonus, you can actually just place a half wall in wood right here, so then people can't look into your core from up top and know if you've moved into it yet. It also stops them from roof camping you from your own roof. You'll just chop that out with a machete later. Next, we can build out our loot room by placing a square here and then a triangle behind it, so then we can attach a triangle in the loot room. Then we'll place a triangle above that, and we can easily fit 8 boxes in this. You'll notice if you try to place it on this side, it kind of rotates around funky, but if you stand on here, it'll line up perfectly straight. The rest of these boxes are pretty foolproof to place. Just make sure that they're butt up against the back. Placement doesn't have to be perfect, but it always helps to make sure that they're pretty flat. Then we can go ahead and put garage doors on the loot rooms and the mobility sections. If we head into our mobility, we can actually put 2 boxes under the floor of open core on each side. We'll then put a horizontal embrasure and a reinforced glass window over top. We'll put a locker with a single door over it on each of these spots, and then we can place beds in front of each of them. So when you're ready to respawn, you have kits right there available for you. On one of the sides up here, we can use this for our T3 workbench, and optionally, if you want a research bench, repair bench, or anything else like that, feel free to put it up here as well. And just like that, we've built our mobility and our open core. Now, I've done a little bit of farming off stream, and I upgraded everything to its final grade. From this point on in the video, I'm just going to do everything in its final grade to keep it simple, but the gist of it is metal everything that you can, but there are, of course, non-essential things like floor tiles, double door frames, single door frames, things like that on the inside of the base. I also went ahead and armored the loot rooms in the starter. Let's turn our 3-way symmetry back on and head over to our mobility where each of these single doors are. We'll expand it out by 1 triangle and make sure to sheet metal this airlock because it will hold up part of our shooting floor. We'll do the same to the right of the window, and we'll put a half-height floor in this one to hold some shotgun traps in our funnel wall. Make sure you do this on the other 2 sides of the base. Remember, symmetry is doing it for me. Then we can come to the spots in between where we want a honeycomb, but we actually have to place these triangle foundations first. Then we can place the foundation where our honeycomb goes and honeycomb all the way up the 3 floors. Now these shooting floor foundations will decay if they're not connected with a frame, so we'll do that now. At this point, we want to build the rest of our shooting floor foundations and our gatehouse foundations, so just follow what you see on screen. Also note that you don't actually need these 2 foundations, but you can leave them if you want. To connect this gatehouse to the rest of these foundations, we'll add in more frames here. Next, we'll build out the actual gatehouse in pretty standard fashion with some windows on either side and a double door frame in the middle. We'll build this up an additional half height so we can fit a couple of turret pods and drop boxes above us. We'll fill out the deployables with strengthened glass windows on the outside and horizontal embrasures on the inside to make some Patrico peaks. Optionally, you can put a ramp up here to make it a little bit easier to access these drop boxes. Make the Patrico peaks by adding a half-height wall with a ceiling tile on top of them. We'll also make sure that we add spots for chain link here, and it's best to upgrade them to brick because it has a significantly smaller hitbox. We'll then place our turrets down with the chain link in front of it. Chain link is spaced far enough away that it adds a few additional HV rockets because it protects them from splash damage. The last thing that we have to do here is place some temporary twigs so we can get these barricades on top of the gatehouse. Go ahead and repeat these same steps on the other 2 sides of the base, and all of our gatehouses will be complete. Building our funnel sections is super easy. Come to the window on each side of the base and build off 6 squares. We'll delete the first 5 and then build back with half moons. Place a square at the end with a triangle on either side. We'll turn around and complete the hexagon here, but delete the middle triangle. We'll raise that up because that'll hold our turret. We'll build off 1 half moon, a square, and then end with 3 triangles where our external TC will go. We only have to use stone on the left, but we'll sheet metal the other 2. Make sure to use double half walls here so the mini Satori disconnectable method works. We'll use a couple of windows here to give us 7 rockets of raid protection through the door and 2 windows. Also, as a little jump up here, I just use these stone barricades. We can place a window frame here and then mimic the foundation pattern in frames. At this point, we can go ahead and delete all of the twig. We'll then put half walls with windows on top of them on each side. We can put a ceiling on this section and then come to the outside where we'll build 3 triangles off of it and then double low walls like this. We'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side of the pod. After that, we'll put a double door frame on either side here to hold our chain link gates, and then a ceiling over top. Finish the battery pod in sheet metal, and then we can place a large battery, a locker, and a garage door over them. After that, we'll build our Patrico peaks with a full wall, 2 half walls, and then these 2 ceiling tiles. Lastly, we'll replace the bottom half wall with a low wall and put a window frame over the whole thing. We'll repeat the same thing on the other side. We'll then enclose the pod and put a double door frame on. We'll get our window embrasures and beds in here, and the pod is complete. These funnel pods offer you respawns in your compound, excellent peaks, super secure batteries that are unlikely to get splashed during a raid, and the ability to re-kit directly in compound. Heading outside, we'll place these chain link gates to prevent splash damage on our turrets. This makes them significantly more expensive to raid with HV rockets. We can then place the ramp for our breach peak and stone. If you try to place a turret here, it actually won't fit because of the conditional models, but we can upgrade one side to sheet metal, place the turret, and then upgrade the other side to reseal it. Also, don't forget these low walls that peek back towards your main base. Our compound is incredibly easy to place and only requires 12 walls. Line yourself up squarely with the compound bed pod and make sure it's just touching the window frame. If you line it up like that, the second wall will pop directly into place. We can repeat the same steps on the other side. This makes it super easy to place regardless of the terrain. You'll always know the exact number of walls you need. The last thing we have to do here is place our large furnaces. This will create a furnace wall that makes it 5 additional rockets to get in. I like to make them about the height of a player model, just so I'm confident nobody will be able to jump over them. You can see you can't get between any of these gaps, and if you place the height correctly, you won't cut off any of the turret's line of sight. The last thing to do to secure our compound is to put some barricades on top. And with that out of the way, you can get all of your metal cooking in large furnaces to speed up the build process. Our entire shooting floor will be built off of foundations that already exist. We'll start off by putting 2 double door frames right here on either side. We'll then build up the rest of the footprint where frames already exist. Taking a look from the top, this is what it'll look like on all 3 sides. Coming to the other 3 sides, we can put half walls here with 2 double door frames on top of each of those. These will just be used to hold up the Patricos in our shooting floor. Coming up to our roof, we can add 3 triangles here and a square on the end. We'll use full walls in here to give us more cover in our shooting floor. After that, we'll head over to the square and make a breach peak using half walls and windows. On these stone frames, we can put another half wall and some ceiling tiles to create the Patrico peak. We'll put a few window frames on either side. This is what it'll look like when it's done. On the squares over here, we'll create another breach peak using a half wall and a window. We'll then put a square frame right here and upgrade it to something with a smaller hitbox. We'll place a roof under it, and again, if you have the building skins, upgrade it to brick or adobe to reduce the hitbox. We'll put down 3 half walls here and then floor tiles above it. This will create a half height offset where we can put our drop boxes. We'll also put down some double door frames here for doors and just general stability. And lastly, we'll put a roof on the entire section. Finish up our breach peak, we can add a couple lockers here and a triangle roof. If you don't plan on adding the lockers, you can always use a square roof here. Upgrading it to one of the building skins will also get rid of that conditional model again and make the peak a little bit better. After that, we'll place full walls on top with a double door frame here and a ceiling on top of it. We'll then put another double door frame and ceiling on top of that for a wind turbine. We can finish putting our deployables down by getting window embrasures on all of these half-height Patrico peaks. We'll also put garage doors on the outside and our jump up. Our depot boxes go just below the jump up as well. Then we can place the floor grills that give us a little bit more space on the roof to place deployables and increase mobility a little bit. Lastly, we can put windows here. If we head back up onto the roof, we can create our final breach peaks using a couple of windows and low walls. We'll then place some roof tiles on here, and as per usual, if you use the building skins, they have a slightly smaller hitbox. We can place a wooden triangle that comes off of here just to help us make this jump, and we can always slap a couple extra beds here. Wind turbines go on top of all 6 parts of the base, only 3 of which are built up right now. Finally, we can wrap up these sections by adding the turrets here. We'll add a triangle as a shelf here and then place a piece of chain link over it to block HV rockets. Then we'll head down and add a turret right here to watch over our open core. If you did add these half walls in wood here, now's the time to chop them out. It only takes about 1 machete per wall, and they're a default BP and super cheap to craft, and it literally only takes a few seconds. The last section of our roof that we have to build are the bed pods that go up there that also contain some of our turrets. We'll come to our funnel section and build up a few frames, place a square, some half walls, and then a floor. Here you can either use full walls or window frames, and then we'll put more half walls on top as a turret pod. This double door blocks the gaps between the main base and the bed pod. I like to add a little siren light here to make mobility a little bit easier so you don't fall down. And just like that, the roof and shooting floor are basically wrapped up. One detail we can add here is what's called a waterfall. By placing these frames and this ramp here, you can easily get down from the roof into your compound without taking any fall damage at all. This is super useful if you just took heli and you need to get out to it, you are defending a raid and spawned on the roof, or let's be honest, you just roof camped your neighbor running by and you need to go loot his kit. Now, I'm not quite sure that you're ready for the next section of this video because I've actually never done this before. This base has a pretty special electricity system, and I've really taken time to think it out. There are these 3 funnel sections that contain large batteries, and each one gets 2 wind turbines from the roof. They come into this root combiner here as input 1 and input 2. The combine out goes into the power in of a large battery. And then the power out of that large battery goes into a switch. The output of that switch leads directly into a splitter. The first splitter simply splits into the next 3. That leaves us with 9 total outputs here, which is the perfect number needed for this base. The first auto turret lives in the same pod right behind the battery. The second is on the gatehouse to the left of the pod. The third is on the gatehouse to the right of the pod. The fourth climbs all the way up the tower and lives in the turret pod just below the wind turbine. And the 5th and final turret for this pod is one of the open core turrets. Depending on how many roof turrets you want, you can simply plug them in here. For the 3 green wires and the red wire here, we have electric furnaces and an industrial conveyor. This system makes it super easy to set up all of your turrets, your electric furnaces, and even an industrial automation system. I hope you're able to run with this electrical system and tailor it to your exact needs. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.